Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You're all very welcome to this afternoon's session at our Probable series, which we're launching for 2022. I am PJ Timmins, Managing Director of the Alternative Board in Ireland, and I'd like to introduce you to my colleague, Donna Kiernan, who runs the Alternative Board in Munster, but also runs a business that focuses purely on one of the things we want to talk about today. As we approached 2022, we looked into our crystal ball and we thought what might be probable in 2022. And to give our members really heads up what trends were probable, we've created this series. Today, we're going to focus on partnerships. And we all know that partnerships that work well are absolutely brilliant. They're vitally important. We all know that two heads are better than one. But why do so many partnerships not work out? When partners combine their expertise, they create opportunities much greater than the sum of their parts. But the synergy often never materializes. But smart partners seek guidance so they can succeed. And did you know, for example, that 70% of all software is sold through partner channels? In 2020, Salesforce announced that it's recruiting 250,000 new partners in the next 4 years, and has effectively shut down its reseller program. So is your partnership working well as it could? What improvements could you make by maybe shifting distribution to a partnership channel in 2022? Now, we have some amazing stories of growth, how partnerships can leverage, and one of them, in fact, that recently achieved the status of unicorn. But before we get into the meat of our discussion, I would like to introduce Tab very briefly to you. In Tab, we've been serving businesses for over 30 years. We're a global organization with thousands of members in 24 countries. And we establish local peer boards of non-competing business leaders who meet monthly and help each other solve their biggest challenges and opportunities that they face. We believe that peer groups are the future of learning, and we see this in our board meetings. Our members genuinely support each other. They have a shared journey, but they also hold each other accountable. We augment the board meetings in private coaching sessions, where our facilitator coaches meet with each member individually every month. Our coaches help their members identify their vision, run their business more strategically, and work to become the best leaders that they can. We also believe that we have the best platform for running your business more strategically. It's called the Business Builder Blueprint. And in addition, our members can tap into the global community through our Tab Connect platform. And finally, we can provide these same tools and benefits not just to the business leader, but to their leadership teams. And really through transformational workshops called Strat Pro, we help teams with vision, alignment, execution. I'm just giving some indication of the investment it is to become a Tab member. These are indicative prices because every business size is different and the challenges are always different. But what you can see is that it's very affordable. And I'd like to introduce you to Donna Kiernan, who is going to work our session today on partnerships. Now, Donna, over to you.
Thank you, PG. I'm going to put this in context, but I always like to start with sharing a photograph that might just relax people a little bit. So hopefully you can see that. Right. So the context of this session is going to talk about partnerships and how they can help you. Right. So it's going to focus very much on a journey, and that's your customer's journey. And it basically, from the very start, before they realized they had a problem, into the point that understand they have a problem that you can solve, and then write out kind of all the different types of companies that interact on that journey. So this photograph is mid-journey, we'll say, right? So as you can see, with sort of the bike all packed up there, right? Right, and so and again, as you go through this, right, it's just keep in mind, you and your partners are solving customer problems jointly. And it's not just about getting new business, it's about jointly solving customers' problems. So sales channels and key route to markets, partnerships of all different types. I'm not going to spend too long talking about me. I'm going to talk about you, right? So doing this specifically for 14 years now, every day, most every day, talking to mostly tech companies and how we grow their sales channels from a consulting point of view into recruitment of the partners across the world to help them sell, and then building out what looks like their partner program. Now, our companies are nearly always tech, and you nearly always can understand what it is to sell their solutions and services as it stands. And then how do we take the knowledge they've created, the proof points they've created, to be able to accelerate their growth through partners. If we have much material on Tenego Academy and much free content up on Tenego TV on the YouTube channel. So we basically addressing questions that pop up that particular week, and just be able to share around with people. So getting into it, so the journey starts with the customer. And the first thing you want to talk about is clearly understanding your bullseye customer. And in understanding your bullseye customer, when asked this question, many people talk about, well, they must have at least this and at least this, but not bigger than this. And that's a range, and that's a very big target. And I think you're better off defining what the bullseye looks like. And the bullseye from sort of the type of company, sort of the target decision makers, the challenges they have, so it's the size of the companies, the scenarios as in use cases, problems that they may have on their particular journey, right? And then with the key decision maker, to understand the responsibilities of that key decision maker are not just about what you offer, but they have other responsibilities. Their world is a little bigger than what you do. So it's to understand what the responsibilities are. And then the questions got to do with the need. It's a bit like if you could get honest information from your target decision makers on the particular problem, what questions would you ask them? Now, you want to ask them and understand, and some of this you can get publicly, you want to understand to what extent they meet your ideal bullseye customer, but then you want to ask them questions for it to quantify and qualify the need and how important it is to solve that need. So these are qualification questions, and many people just don't have these, right? But it's important to understand your bullseye and understand how to identify them if you meet them. I always equate a marketing and sales process is similar to you just bumped into somebody at an event and they're very open to talk, and you just found out their customer. What is that conversation from very start to finish? That's the marketing and sales process entirely in that discussion. So what are the first few questions to dig a little deeper to understand? Next thing is sort of, if you talk about sort of every business is modeled in a process, okay? And what we're showing here in a business process is served up by whatever your proposition is or your product. What are you selling? And the whole business is taken from there in generating leads, identifying opportunities, proposals and close, delivery, implementation, whatever that means in your business, follow up, client success, and then all the added value services that your end customer needs, but you don't do. It's a bit like the added value services are all the bits that that decision maker needs around what you do to get the most value out of what you deliver to them. And some people think, no, we're delivering everything for them, but then maybe think a bit more VIP level. If they weren't going to do it all themselves, what other services would they bring in to help them? Now, if you think about, and the title of this slide, business process and growth bottlenecks. So every business mapped in a process, every business trying to progress, what are its bottlenecks and what is its primary bottleneck? In most businesses is around leads. But what people might think is, I want to get more leads, but then why aren't you getting more leads today? Is it sort of a marketing outreach problem? Is it a gap in your product? Is it your sales ability not being able to identify the product or relate to the customer, or being able to close deals? Or is it a lack of credibility on the delivery and implementation? So the point around partners can help you all along this business process. But identifying the bottleneck and then identifying the reasons why you cannot progress faster on that bottleneck. Because as we know, every business process is limited by the the primary bottleneck. Okay, so that's the one we need to address. Next thing is your bottlenecks can be addressed by capability. And that capability can be filled by yourselves or can be filled by partners. So if you look at this business process, map it out according to the capability you need, and then what type of partner can help you at that bottleneck or at that stage. Now, what I'm showing here now is basically nearly every business is constrained by how compelling the customer proposition is. The more compelling the customer proposition, the more it gets through the noise that's out there. And going back to the bullseye customer and the use cases and the problems you solve, you can get through that noise the more relevant you are to that bullseye customer and the key problems you solve. The people that are bland are people trying to solve too many people's problems and not as relevant on the edges, we say. So how compelling is your customer proposition is very, very important. Now, if you have a compelling customer proposition, partners are going to be interested too. So your customer proposition is part of your partner proposition. But it's not the only item, but it is the first item on the list. And a partner proposition is what you're offering the partner, the value you're bringing to the partner. And the way the partners think, just like yourselves, if you're working with somebody else, you want to solve the customer's problem. If you have a compelling customer proposition, then it's solving a very valuable customer problem. The weaker your customer proposition, then the stronger your partner proposition needs to be. It's a bit like if you haven't solved the battle for the customer, then really the battle becomes for the partner, because the weaker the customer proposition, the more you get into a commodity space. And in a commodity space, people just take recommendations. The more influence a partner has if you're in a commodity space. And I always give the example of antivirus. We don't care what antivirus we have, they're all the same. So we're just going to take someone's recommendation. And that's it. And so if you have a very compelling customer proposition, you don't have that problem. So it is serious battles for the partner at that level. I'm going to move on. So now the customer journey. So typically when I ask people about what is their customer journey, they start telling me their marketing and sales process. And that's not the customer journey. The customer was on this journey before your marketing and sales process even started. So let's consider that customer journey. The customer journey basically starts back, again, think of the bullseye customer, the use cases, the scenarios, the problems you solve, and related problems. At the very start of this, they have challenges. They don't even know, maybe, that they have these challenges. And a bit like in our world, most of our marketing's got to do in the areas that people don't know what they don't know. And they think that they have everything solved. They don't even know they have this problem. They don't even know a methodology exists around such a problem. So they need help in realizing, first of all, you have a problem, and identifying what they don't know. And then they acknowledge that, okay, I have a need. How do I investigate that need? How do I evaluate the different solutions to that need? Buying, implementing, using, right? And that is all so many different implications along that journey. Now, it takes a vendor. In this case, we're talking about, again, mostly a technology or product vendor, but it could be a service as well, for that matter. Most marketing exists down here in this awareness stage, when someone is actually looking or even aware that they have a need. So this awareness marketing, lead generation, opportunity, sales flows, and so on. Now, let's consider that customer journey, and let's consider a consultant, because let's assume that any business with a problem, working with any outside advisor, whether a business coach, mentor, consultant, they begin to look at my business and help them look at how I'm going to progress my business, and they go in and do an audit or review, and they make certain do analysis and they make certain recommendations. And it's in that space, that's where a certain level of awareness education takes place. How they might solve a need. So, and the perfect example of a customer journey, when I was in secondary school, two of the major banks in Ireland, AIB and Bank of Ireland, came in and gave us £5 each to go into our savings account. right? We weren't even thinking about savings at that age, right? So, but they got us early and they keep us. They know that, right? So, and I think it's back to how do you get in there early? And the earlier you get in with something, then kind of the more likely they'll stay with you, right? So, and I want to just a little aside here, right? So, but how do you do this? And most people think, okay, what I want is referrals. You're just thinking about yourself. But a partner proposition is a sort of, it's a give and a get. So, like I say to all solution providers, you are the expert in your solution space. You're probably more expert than the consultants out there. Give the consulting some sort of a consultant pack to help them in that initial audit review, to make sure they're aware that these problems can be solved in a certain way and the benefits they bring. But give them a consulting pack, a means by which they can sell more of what they want. So you're giving them, as a partner proposition, you're giving them what more of what they want, but then lead them in a direction to solve a problem that you solve. And that's sort of the consulting bit. Now, if you take that later on, some consulting companies are also service providers. I define consulting as the analysis and the sort of the consulting go in that direction, basically. Where the implementation and the ongoing services are more got to do with service providers and outsourced services. And again, the proposition may well be different. And the best partner value proposition you can give is one that enables more of the services or more of the business that the partner wants. So if they want implementation services, if they want ongoing services, and your offering gives them that, then they're going to love you. Now, that can be applied to any partner. So it's, PG, you mentioned this at the start about Salesforce's plan, about 250,000 partners, and I would bet it's for their marketplace. Because with the model on marketplaces like Salesforce today, kind of everything's going more and more digital. And marketplaces, cloud marketplaces have grown 50 to 75% a year over the last few years. And they're pushing transactions through their marketplace. And they talk about partner influence revenue. So, and the value the marketplace can bring is back to the power of the influence and the credibility that Salesforce bring into their ecosystem. And the more people they bring in, the more value on their overall platforms. So they gain every step of the way, as well as transactions through the platform. So, and that's why they get more and more partners. And Salesforce typically weren't a very strong reseller type. They would have trainers and implementers around the world, and they would generate leads for them. So, but the marketplace is probably the way they're going for their particular partners. So, and then there's OEM or bundled type partners where, let's say your offering wasn't enough to get their attention, wasn't strong enough for a certain customer, strong enough for other partners. You can partner up with other people with complementary services, technologies to make your offering or joint offering more effective, and thus being able to be more relevant or compete at a different level. Then sort of system integrators or value-added resellers. And these are the people who take your product, have a layer of services on top of it, and then they implement that in the marketplace. And then you can think about in technology world is the people that do sort of the customization, the implementation, the integration, kind of the configuration, kind of all those things. People sell services, and solutions more and more configurable. So there's more a business analysis and about how understanding the client is more important than understanding the technology almost these days, because it's all more and more configuration. So they're applying the services, more of what they want. The added value is using the tool and applying it properly to what the customers need. And then you have the outsourced providers. So the outsourced providers, there are many, many examples of these. Sometimes they're simple sort of BPOs, taking an entire back-end process where they can be tooled up to be more efficient for the client. And in other cases, say, going in and delivering services on the back of some sort of, we'll say, cybersecurity on the back of some major tools. In specialist areas, and they're in there, they have maybe a monthly fee, and they're looking after that particular part of the customer's problem. So like in all these cases, they're serving different needs at different stages of the customer journey. Before you arrive, while you're going through your sales process, while you're delivering your solution, and after you deliver. And the more you understand the customer journeys, ask the customers, the more then you can figure out who maps at what stages, and then to think about how can you help them along that process. They might help you as well. So the give and the get. I'm going to keep going. I'd say the bottom items coming up at the bottom, it's very important here. Right? Firstly, with any one company type that you identify on that customer journey, alignment has got to do with, are you selling to the right customers, the same decision makers, complementary back into the same use cases, the needs you solve and related needs, and then are you giving them more of what they want? And this comes back into the proposition. Are you helping them on their plans? And then how quickly can you get them started, that training? How do you minimize the pain to get started, that effort, so they can start engaging the market with you? And then how do you make it easier for them all the time in that continuous engagement or enablement? This is another way of looking at it. This is a market ecosystem. So the market ecosystem is getting into your decision maker's head and looking at the world from their point of view. It's a bit like if you could look at their purchase book from all the previous years, who are all the different people they buy from? And then it's sort of the top end of this ecosystem are the various influencers. If you look at sort of the standards, the regulations, the codes of practice, the market analyst, the trade media for that particular peer group, all the events they go to, and identify all the different advertisers, the people who want to get the attention of that decision maker. And they all make up the ecosystem. So you have your consultants, advisors, specialists to generalists. You have different types of service providers, the project-based and the outsourced services. You have different types of resellers. And then you have all the different sort of, in this case, software solutions, technology solutions. And each one of these company types solve related problems. They could even solve the same problem. They could be directly competitive, and they could solve related problems. So if the previous slides were talking about the capabilities you need to relieve those bottlenecks for growth, this is all about the capabilities that exist in the marketplace. And that's represented by the company types. So the company types, each of these company types have a particular capability. They're all varied, and some companies can exist in multiple layers, especially when you look at like the Deloittes and some of these. But you're looking for very specific capabilities that help you at certain stages. And the next stage in the process is when you look at these companies, there are different stages of the customer journey. Who can help you? Who has the capabilities to help you and that you can align with, and are going to be motivated by what you can offer them? And that's when you start to sort of to help you prioritize which ones you should be dealing with. You could say every company in the ecosystem might be able to help you, but not equally. So it's thinking about sort of how do you focus your attention, because you've only got limited resources, we all have. So how do you think who's going to give you most of what you want right now? Okay. And it doesn't say just pick the best one, because you have to hedge your best. There's always a learning process here. And then sort of identify, again, ideal bullseye target partner types and the profiles, and then start engaging the market, maybe the ones you know first to validate, and then kind of with the proposition and so on. So that's all an important strategy. I'm just going to take a very brief step back and just cover some very basic fundamentals. As I pointed out earlier, a sales partner can bolster your business at any stage of your business process. Even on the delivery, if someone gives you enormous credibility on the delivery side of things, it eases your sales process. If someone gives you features on the product, it might ease your sales process. You have a more sort of robust product, if that's what it was. Right? So it's not just about how a sales partner has to do with certain things. It can help you in any stage just to be able to accelerate your business. So back to this diagram again. So, and this is very much sort of the partner types. And I want to hit it here. Again, we always look at the basis that a partner is bringing you certain capabilities. And some like ignore the terminology. And I just want to, quite the opposite, talk about some of the terminology that's used here. So an affiliate is really a marketing partner. And affiliates typically don't have good relationships. They may have influence, but they don't have one-to-one relationships with the target. Okay. And they're usually dealing in volume. You think about the influencers in the retail world, you think about sort of the people with sort of, I don't know, websites or publications of some sort, and they can send you traffic in a web sense. But you might have a link and there might be influencers. Referrals typically then, coming up a level, have relationships. And their value is all about the credibility they can bring you instantly. And then keep going further. Sales agents are helping you sell. So moving further on the sales process. But a sales agent is a legal term. They can help you sell, but they don't have a contract with the customer. It's a bit like a travel agent. They arrange the traveler for you, but your contract is with the travel company, not the agent. And then resellers who take your product and resell it forward. There are many examples of those. And then you have value-added resellers who basically have a whole other service or maybe other products on top of yours. Managed service providers, this is an outsourced provider. Distributors typically have a network of resellers below them of different types. And then you have your OEM, original equipment manufacturer from the electronics world, a bundled or a white label, where they're taking your product, they're putting it in as part of theirs, and then to be able to sell the whole thing. Technology partners, and I say here with go-to-market supports, and that Salesforce marketplace could well be an example. They're not the best example. Kind of, if you're in an equivalent in the technology world, could be in the Microsoft marketplace. And if you're generating much consumption on Microsoft Cloud, they will roll in with loads of go-to-market support to help you get into the large customers and so on. So it's technology partners, and I had a very controversial video on Tenego TV where I said sort of selecting your technology platform is not a technology decision, it's a go-to-market decision. So techies don't like that point. So I'm a former techie, so I just hate them. And then the platforms and marketplaces, they're usually one and the same. So Salesforce is a platform and it has a marketplace. Microsoft's a platform and it has a marketplace. And then you think about for the physical product world, Amazon. Amazon is really a whole marketing platform, marketplace to do lots of things. Some basic fundamental stuff here. Direct is where you have a direct relationship with the customer, and indirect is you have someone in between. You could argue these points. You could have a partner, indirect, which is that type of thing here, right? And that's a referral. Basically, the contract is still with between the vendor and the customer, but you have someone who's facilitating the sales somehow, right? And there's different roles all along that. So it could be a referral, it could be an agent, it could be an affiliate, a referral, an agent, or someone who's just supporting you through the process. An indirect is that resell type. They're taking what you got and they're reselling it forward. And again, resellers, distributors, white label, and so on. A couple of things jump into this, right? First thing is, so many people haven't and don't think about what they really want from a partner. They think about, okay, they're selling to the same customer, I identify them in the marketplace, let's just go talk to them. And there's nothing wrong with that, but there's a couple of other things that would make it an awful lot easier. And firstly, if you knew what you wanted, so depending on your business, right? And most would say specialist services business, it's hard to get someone to sell that for you, but they can definitely open the door. Whereas some solution companies are very similar to many other solution companies. So therefore the capability would say is more transferable or more industry standard. So if you just want that referral, then to be clear, that's what you want. And then it's because, but see, the thing is, and most people just want to give me access to the customer decision, the customer's decision maker, right? Kind of, or help me through the sales process. Kind of, now, do they need to have some domain or technical capability to be credible? So selling into a large company kind of is not enough, because they have to be credible with the decision maker to be able to transfer that relationship and be credible in making that introduction. Or even if you want them to ask some of those qualification questions. So be clear about what you want at each stage in the process. And there's almost a danger of asking too much or expecting too much. And even if they can do everything, you could even start them slow and build. Now, what you want, so you're ready. In a product partner, you might want more features. You might want sort of integrators and credibility back into their platforms or marketplaces, right? Just get into their ecosystem. And with that, when you're in their ecosystem and you're potentially, they have a vested interest in driving your business, kind of, are you going to do enough or generate enough consumption for them? Then they'll help you with the go-to-market support. But when you get into the sales stuff, first of all, okay, just give me access to decision makers. Help me communicate in a broadly and maybe marketing sense out to a large number of decision makers. If you have domain credibility, it makes it more powerful. If you have influence over decision makers, it makes it more powerful. Do you have the capability of assessing whether the customer has a need? Because that reduces a lot of pain and gives you better quality leads. So qualified customer leads and referring opportunities. Or are they able to do that initial pitch, that presentation demo type approach, be able to take it further, and then going into a more extended needs discovery to be able to shape what the solution is. So it's mapping your offering back into what they really need, or maybe back what they need back into your offering, and to be able to shape that and then propose, close, manage the relationship on the delivery and implementation. So your technical implementation, configuration, customization, integration, right? And then be able to manage projects, change management, training, stakeholder management, customer success, added value services, all the things you don't do. Kind of all the sort of the large rollouts, we say, if it's a large enterprise customer, team communication, all along that. And that, the whole map, according to each stage, it's a whole set of possibilities. And that's typical for most solution delivery stuff. And it's almost like a checkbox here. What do we want you to do? And then it also gives you a map of assessing whether they have the capability to do that. So it's not just say, this is we want to do all this and everyone's the same and going to be able to do all these things. They're not all the same. So let me just say, I have one or two other things I want to share. Actually, I'm going to skip a few slides. The question of will partners or which channels work with your business. And there's two slides I want to show you on this one, right? So, is there a market for the product? Is there a clear target customer, and do they have a need, right? Proven customer value proposition that will travel. So the point about the will travel is, in fact, if your value proposition works well, we'll say in a high economy market where it's got to do with saving labor costs and all this sort of stuff, it's not going to have the same value in a lower cost economy, right? If your solution got to do with regulation and compliance, that's going to work very well with those regulations exist and enforced, but not so where they don't. So the proposition may need to be adjusted. And then the clear partner proposition, again, very strong customer proposition. Will it solve the customer's need? Will it help the partner in solving that customer need that they're trying to solve? Will it solve another problem for the partner? Right? So is it going to sort of give them resulting service revenue if that's their model? Is there going to be an adequate deal size? Because the partner proposition is not just for those people at the business level. You have to think about sort of the sales people or the frontline people. Kind of, is it going to be relevant for them as well? And the alignment and the motivation has to be there too. So an adequate deal size. So if you have to think of what deal sizes they're currently selling, is yours going to be at a similar level or a nice add-on level or whatever it's going to be to help them, that you can share enough with them it's going to interest them? And then is there going to be ongoing business for them, right? So then next thing is the whole marketing and sales support. Okay, we see how it all fits. How do you make it as easy as possible for them to get started and to continue? And then the transferable skills. It's all fine to have a great product that customers really love, but if they absolutely need you every step of the way, that's a major bottleneck in the scalability of the business. So even if you're getting you have loads of people very excited and sending you loads of referrals, you just can't deal with a high volume if you need that specialist skills. And that's a trap that lots of, we'd say, very innovative type technologies fall into at the early stage to try and map out, okay, what's the real capability that's needed in the early stages, that domain credibility, how do they transfer that skill? And equally on the implementation side, because most technology companies don't start thinking of partners, so the implementation needs to be done in-house until they develop it for the partner. And I say so often to technology product managers, the channel is also a persona in your product design and development. And the go-to-market is absolutely necessary to consider at that early stage. So be able to transfer the skills. And the underlying point in all partner proposition is how is it going to help the partner meet their plans? So many people think, look, we've got a great product, walk into the partner and says you can make loads of money out of this. Yeah, but that may not be their business. And there's loads of opportunities. So it's just, they already had a plan. They weren't just waiting for you to walk in the door and give them a plan. So if you can help them go faster, better on that particular plan, then that's great. The last slide, the whole table of numbers here. This one here is really looking at from a financial point of view on sort of the costs of customer acquisition and then the role that partners can play in this. So any business, you can sit down now and do estimates what it takes for you to win one customer. In this particular example, it was a technology company selling a solution on an annual recurring fee. The first year deal was typically about 70K, but the second year could be 200K a year thereafter. Now, they were a very competitive space and they had to win their business by attending something like 30 trade shows across North America, across the US and Canada. And in this, the cost for leads was very high at 92 euros, you see here, right? Qualified leads, getting them sort of following up on those initial leads, talking to them again and bringing them forward was 100 euros. And then getting more senior people involved on that presentation stage was 800 euros. So you're getting expensive. And then the demo, somewhat customized, kind of with that 1,200 euro, and then the sandbox evaluation, getting all that stuff in place, and then legals on closing. So it was an expensive enough sales process because it was very competitive. But once they were in the door, a bit like AIB and that £5, once they got in there, they stayed. Now, if you look at success rates, very low success rate from lead generation to qualified leads, but then we're getting into decent numbers as we go forward. And even the last point of 50% of proposals closed. Now, there's a whole debate on when you don't issue a proposal when you feel very confident, but anyway, this was their process. Now, this is an important one. What's the cost to get one deal? One deal, 50%, right? All the way back, 292 leads are needed to generate one deal. The cost of 292 leads is almost 27,000 euros. Now let's look at the cumulative costs. The cumulative cost to win a deal is almost 54,000 euros. Now, any business can sit down, and if you know your sales process, you can do this out of your head, right? Give a good estimate what it is, and it'll give you a frightening number at the end of what it costs to win a new customer. But just very few businesses actually know it. So another very important one here is this stage here. So the greatest point, the toughest point we're always trying to get to in every business is that point of credibility with the decision maker. Where the decision maker trusts us and we're always stopped. We're not selling anymore. We're helping them solve a problem, which like most sales should be. But that point of credibility means that we're having a good conversation about the customer's need and what's needed to solve it. Now, that point of credibility, as you see here, typically costs up to 60 to 80% of a customer acquisition budget. When you're going cold, 60 to 80% of your customer acquisition base, 42,000 of 54, basically in this scenario, get to that point. Now, that's the value of a referral, a credible referral, getting to that point of credibility. And any business that gets referrals in, they know that's the situation. The conversations are different. Everything is better. Not just does it save you the bother of getting that 14 there, but it's going to increase your rates going forward. Yeah. So how do you achieve faster results, earlier revenue? I'm going to go back to the bullseye customer focus. Rather than 292, make them more relevant. The ideal sales funnel is flat. Like the sweet shop, your big sign upside that says sweets, we sell sweets. We want bullseye customers are people who want sweets. And anyone's going to walk in that door is going to buy sweets, okay? And so if we were all as clear as that on our messaging, then we'd have people walking in the door and have a higher sort of return on that effort. But the problem is it takes a lot of courage to be that focused on the customer you want. And the internet has enabled people to sort of these point solutions. We saw these very narrow solutions for this type of customer, and people are very good at doing that. And they've started small and built it very well. So, but there's many businesses who are just afraid. They hedge their bets too much, and they all look the same. Right? We're all driven into the middle somehow, right? So, of blandness. So, how do you reduce the costs at each stage? Well, the simple point is how do you get better here? How do you get better here? But the biggest cost is getting the leads. If you had a partner referring those 14 leads, firstly, you're not spending the money, that 42,000. You're leveraging the partner's value, their relationships, just getting to that point in the sale, right? And you're not paying them until you've won the deal. So there's no cash out to get to that point. The cash out, so there's no risk. Cash out is only after you won the deal with most partnerships. Now, you do have an investment because partners cost and you are supporting them. So it may not be 100% of that. So, and the overall risk has moved. And in many cases, if you find the right partners, the risk is gone. So how can partners help in all of this? So that whole alignment with the customer journey and helping them drive on the sales process, it's represented on getting to the point here, removing that major cost. That's 60 to 80% of getting to that point of credibility. So if you had, in this case, if they got 14 good referrals, should they give the partner that 42,000 euros? So I would sort of go back to, no, give them half of it. And if they meet the targets, give them the bonus. But it's almost like there's a management cost, there's a marketing cost, and then half of it may well be just going to the partner in an outline model. So partner fit. Right, so I highlight that like in a software proposition, for example, sort of what is your proposition? What's your partner proposition? So basically, again, the partner wants to know what problem you're solving with the customer. So what's your solution? What customers to target, what decision maker, what use cases, what scenarios, what pains? And then the deal size and deal shape, sort of that's an assessment of what it takes to sell it in a sense, but also sort of the revenue opportunity. So how do you sell it? What's it take to what's the investment to win a new customer? What's the process? And then thinking about how does that map to a customer process. So partner fit evaluation is all about really, really understanding the partner's business and then how your proposition aligns. So how you fit within their business. So I'm going to look at it from the reseller's point of view. So in every business, you're thinking about how you solve the customer's needs. And the partner is the same. So when someone comes from a solution, they're thinking instantly how it solves the customer's needs. And thinking about sort of, can it sell more to the existing customers and what customers might suit? And will it give them an edge to beat their competition to bring in new customers? It's back to area those partners. Will it fill a gap in what they need to get more business? Will it give them a competitive edge in the marketplace? Does it fit with the current product set? I mean, their ability to sort of deliver, implement, or they're credible in selling this particular solution. Does it fit in the capabilities in sales? And as I mentioned, sort of the deal size comes into that too. I mean, if they're typically selling a deal size of say of 20K and you come in with something with 200K, that's a little different. But the opposite is also true, right? So you have to think sort of how that fits, and say sort of now then how much money they're going to make on it. So firstly, does it fit the customer need? Does it fit in our business? How do we make money? And is there an ongoing revenue stream in this? Then, so when you start sort of talking to somebody again at the event, what percentage of their customer base is your type of bullseye customer and percentage of where the product fits in the needs that you solve? You can always determine the rhythm of the reseller's business by asking some of these questions, the rhythm that's relevant to you. And then when you start to understand how they market and sell, you're supposed to know what it takes to market and sell your own solution. So how does it work with what they're currently doing? Can you learn from them? Can you add something to what they're doing? and then fitting into future plans. So if they're stated, yeah, we want to go into this particular space or develop capabilities in this particular area, if your product can help them do that, or your service can help them do that, then it helps. And the more intangible ones is sort of people and culture. Do you think you can work with them? A simple example here, if someone is sort of very low cost focused and you're premium, that's never going to work, right? That's not always a cultural thing, but it's more a strategy thing. But typically, there can be different very approach to business that can be identified very clearly, even on the websites before you talk to them. And then their interest and commitment. So interest, commitment, a plan to go along with it, and the investment in effort on an ongoing basis to continue to develop the relationship. And I say relationship with caution because it needs to be embedded in our processes, not just good intentions. There's a failing on relationships, and I've come across so often recently. I have very good relationships with my partner, worked very well. Saying, well, are you really asking a favor because you like them all the time, or is it embedded in our business? And I think it's important, because if the relationship is gone, is it still embedded in our business? So I hope you get that a flavor. There's many more things I can cover, but depending on people's needs. But I hope that gives you a flavor.
Great, Donald. Look, thank you very much for sharing that with us. One of the things when we're looking at companies that are raising investments or looking at exits, the valuation of their business, we're always looking at what formula do they have and the relationship between the cost of customer acquisition and lifetime value of the customer. Because if that's too high, we know that it's very easy for entrants to come into the marketplace because they can just go and outspend them. And if it's too low, maybe they have a problem with the value proposition or with the way they're marketing and finding customers that it's too expensive. We've also seen lots of our members who have been quite subject to changes in Google. One of them recently, with changes in Apple iOS, their cost of customer acquisition went up fourfold overnight. So businesses can be very dependent on, let's call it the paid methodologies of acquiring businesses. And therefore, I think it's one of the reasons we feel why partnerships is so important. Donna, maybe before I get into specific questions that I've had coming in from some members, could you just maybe outline briefly, typically, how do you deal with people who are clients of yours? How do you engage with them and what levels are there?
So I suppose there's two types. You could say, well, there are different stages of development, right? Let's say at this, assume that they know exactly how to sell what they currently have and a successful direct business. And they may have some partner relationships, but not function at their optimum, we say. But that could be validation on how they can work with partners. So we can go in there and help them do the consultancy exercise to shape their partner strategy and even assist them on partner recruitment and structuring their whole partner program to scale. Or with Tenego Academy, we can give them online content and say sort of group sessions, if you like, to support them through a whole journey on building their partner program themselves. So we can do it for them, or we can support them in doing it.
And typically, how long, would a partnership academy program be?
So they vary. I mean, we tend to map them according to the pace of which they're doing, but it could be some people might have very short-term need. It could be 3 months. Some people might sort of more support over 6 months and then extend that on more advisory and more, not so much content. The content is generally covered within a 6-month period, but more advisory depending on their plans.
And are these mixed groups, or are they just single company operations?
So it's many situations in the past with a lot of single company. We are moving more and more group-based stuff. Okay.
We are recording this session, so for the people who are recording, we probably just cut off at this stage, but this is available to them and for reviewing afterwards. And we'll move maybe more now into specific member questions. Obviously, people who are members of TAB, we do say what goes on board stays on board. So I will move to that more confidential kind of questions now.